Confessions of a Film Poser! Hey, welcome back. It's me, Vince.
Hey, I'm Eli.
And we are...
Film Posers. Hey, if you've been here before, welcome back. But if you're new here, welcome. We're glad to have you. I wanted to encourage you to go back and watch the very first video that we ever put out here at the Confessions of a Film Poser channel. It kind of outlines what the channel is. We're movie fans, but we're also posers, and there's a bunch of movies that we've just never seen. We're taking the opportunity to watch all of these movies, and we want you to come along with us. So go back after this episode and watch that first video, and then come join the fun. Drama is life with the dull bits cut out. Pretty sure Gandhi said that.
Eli, that doesn't sound like the Gandhi I know.
No, not Gandhi. Gandhi.
Oh, Gandhi.
Yeah, he said it while eating a sandwich after a legendary hunger strike. Okay, fine. It wasn't Gandhi at all. It was Alfred Hitchcock.
And Gandhi and Hitchcock have what in common?
Absolutely nothing. But Hitchcock is the subject of this week's Cinema Confessions here on Confessions of a Film Poser.
Oh, well then give it to me, baby.
Okay. Alfred Hitchcock was born on August 13th, 1899 in London, England, but we won't hold that against him. He went on to become one of the most influential filmmakers of the 20th century, earning the nickname the Master of Suspense. He started in Britain during the silent film era, then moved to Hollywood in 1939, where he created some of cinema's most iconic thrillers. Hitchcock pioneered techniques in editing, camera movement, and audience manipulation that are still studied today. He had a knack for making ordinary settings terrifying, whether it was a shower, a crop duster chase, or a quiet little motel off the highway. Beyond his films, Hitchcock became a cultural icon with his dry wit and macabre sense of humor. He even made cameos in nearly all of his movies and hosted the TV anthology Alfred Hitchcock Presents. His influence still shows up everywhere today, from Spielberg to David Fincher. Some of his most famous works include Rear Window from 1954, a thriller told entirely from one apartment. Vertigo from 1958, a deep dive into obsession and illusion. North by Northwest from 1959, featuring one of cinema's greatest chase sequences. Psycho from 1960, with its shocking shower scene. The Birds from 1963, where nature itself becomes the villain. And today, we're zeroing in on his 1958 film, Vertigo. When it first came out, Vertigo was actually a commercial disappointment, and critics weren't thrilled with it either. But over time, it's been reevaluated as Hitchcock's masterpiece, now often ranked among the greatest films ever made. Hitchcock even invented the famous dolly zoom shot, where the background stretches while the subject stays in place, to recreate the dizzying sensation of vertigo. That technique has since popped up in everything from Jaws to Goodfellas. The film was also one of the 5 lost Hitchcocks, movies that disappeared from circulation for decades until they were re-released in the 1980s. 5 Lost Hitchcocks also sounds like the name of a sketchy VHS tape that probably sat in your parents' movie cabinet, Vince.
Hey, dude, don't bring my family's VHS collection into this. My dad loves the classics.
What? It's a callback to a previous episode. Okay, fair. Anyway, in 2012, Vertigo dethroned Citizen Kane in Sight and Sound's famous critics poll, being named the greatest film of all time. So, if it's good enough for Spielberg, if it's good enough for Fincher, and it's good enough for Gandhi, why haven't we seen it yet, Vince?
Okay, so I think I definitely qualify for a movie poser when it comes to Hitchcock films, because I've seen Psycho, and I've seen The Birds. I saw The Birds when I was a kid. I know that it has to do with birds. Other than that, I don't remember a single thing. Vertigo, I've heard of. I've heard people love it, and it's one of the top movies, and I have never seen it. It's never even made its way. Like, I don't think I've seen a single scene other than the spiral, but I think that was just an advertisement. I'm actually really excited to jump into some Hitchcock, dude.
Yeah, me too. I've seen a few Hitchcock movies. Growing up, I watched a lot of Alfred Hitchcock Presents, which was kind of it was pretty dang good, but it wasn't like Twilight Zone good, but it was kind of in that same realm. I know this movie I know that Jimmy Stewart's in it. Jimmy Stewart is a classic actor. Biggest probably movie of all time is his biggest movie of all time is It's a Wonderful Life. Classic Frank Capra movie that we all watch every year. I know him from a couple of things in this movie, the cover where he's like looking scared. And then the other thing that I know this movie from, and like really comes to mind when I think of it, is back in like the 90s or early 2000s, they used to have like a stunt special effects show at Universal Studios Hollywood. And for my mom's birthday one year, we went and stayed at the Universal Hilton, I believe it was, which is really cool. They had like a lot of movie history, memorabilia and stuff in the lobby and all that, but it was like across the street from Universal Studios. But I remember they had this special effects show, and they would have somebody that looked like they were hanging behind a green screen, and it was a scene from Vertigo. That's it. That's pretty much all I know. I've seen Psycho. I love Psycho. I've seen The Birds. The Birds is great in its own way. There's a movie that it's not talked about as much called Rope. Have you ever heard of Rope?
I've never heard of Rope.
Dude, Rope is awesome. Rope is basically about two guys that kill a dude in an apartment, and they shove him in a box, and then they have a house party where all these people come over, and he's in the box, and they're like serving food off this box that his body's in. It's almost like a stage play. Like, I'm surprised nobody's ever done this, and maybe they have. I just don't know about it. If you know, leave it in the comments. I'd love to hear more. But it's just like the suspense is like there, because from the you as the audience member know that this body is in a box and nobody else does. And as the movie progresses, more and more people kind of clue into what's going on. But great movie. I've never seen North by Northwest. That has been a movie that I've started a few times that I have never finished or gotten very far in. Another one that I would love to watch on this channel. I think we have plans for that coming up.
Yeah,
but
I haven't seen that either.
Vertigo is always, even from when I was a kid, like it's always been a movie I've wanted to see, just to kind of like have context for that Universal Studios Hollywood special effects spectacular. I'm excited for this one. I'm excited to see where it goes. I hope that dude, is this the one that we watch where we're like, this was a letdown, and I don't understand why I don't see what other people see in this movie, because so far, dude, I threw on Close Encounters again last night. I mean, I love that movie. Did you?
Nice.
Dude. I did. The director's cut.
After our last show, I kind of did a little more deep dive. I think one of the extended trailers or versions of that movie, you get to see him go into the spaceship. So it kind of made me want to watch it again.
All right.
And then one more thing. This might be something that we do come Christmas time. Your boy Vince has never seen It's a Wonderful Life.
Dude. You know what? I have seen It's a Wonderful Life a ton of times, but I would love, honestly, I think that we need to start watching movies that the other one has seen, just to kind of bounce back and forth, especially if it's a movie that we hype. So yeah, definitely. I would love to introduce it. And there's not very many Christmas movies I haven't seen that are like big Christmas movies.
Yeah.
So I would love that. I would love, like, that's absolutely what we'll do for Christmas this year. And so come back for that. What do you expect from this movie? Do you expect terror? Do you expect suspense?
I don't expect to be put to sleep. From what I've heard about this movie and how amazing it is, I have high hopes, which usually isn't the best way to go into a movie because you'll get let down pretty quick. I don't know. I'm hoping that it's kind of a mind trip, dude, because if he's going to try to record the movie and or kind of give you the feeling of Vertigo, which I imagine this movie's going to do, I think it's going to be a little disorienting.
Yeah, right? That's a word.
Yeah. Okay, just making sure that's the word.
You got it.
I get nervous when I'm on here.
It's fine. I do that.
Hopefully, I don't walk away with vertigo after watching it.
Dude, maybe we all get vertigo. Maybe it just our lives change forever. I'm expecting Jimmy Stewart to go, "That's right, Clarence. That's right." See, you don't get that reference.
I don't get that reference, dude.
It's a Wonderful Life. But all right, let's kick it on over to future Eli and Vince. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Hey, past earlier in the week, Vince and Eli, you Vertigo virgins. See what I did there? Alliteration. Did that work?
It was okay.
How you doing, Vince? How's your week going, dude?
The week is going, dude. Jumping into these movies and kind of escaping from reality has been good this week, so I'll take it.
Yeah, that's always good. So I take it from that comment you have watched Vertigo.
I have seen Vertigo, and I hate to say, I was blown away again, dude.
Oh, dude, I just got to say, like, you know, again, Vince touched on this the last couple episodes. There's going to be spoilers here. We're going to talk about this movie, hopefully in depth. But yeah, dude, this is why I love movies. This is why I love film discourse, as, you know, inept at it as I am. These kind of movies that you sink your teeth in. And this is why I really wanted to start this channel, was to watch these movies that I've always wanted to see, that I've known in the back of my head, or, you know, everybody's when it makes the list of like all-time great movies, you know it's going to be somewhat good. I love it, and this is one of them. And just what Alfred Hitchcock was able to do with this movie, I loved it so much.
Did it feel like a movie from '58 to you?
It
Because
did, and yeah,
it didn't. The 4K is blowing my mind anytime it comes to super old movie. Um, them driving through San Francisco in the '50s in 4K is probably my new favorite thing, and I'm probably going to start going on YouTube and trying to find any video like that I can to just put on loop and watch because I loved it, dude.
yeah, no, I think the 4K transfer was great. You know, I know that there's a kind of a like there's discourse online in the movie community of like, or like the physical movie collecting community of how these movies are being transferred. A lot of them are transferred from the film, from the negatives of the original film, and then some are used AI. I know like a lot of people complained about the recent James Cameron 4K upgrades of stuff like Terminator. I don't know if it was Terminator, but it was The Abyss came out, True Lies. And I think Terminator 2 was one of them that people complained because he uses an AI company to do it. And what they don't like about it is it takes an older movie and makes it look more modern. It takes some of the film grain out. That doesn't, and maybe this makes me a bad like movie fan or physical movie collector, like, you know, imposter, but I don't mind that. I don't mind. To your point, yes, like this movie looked very modern. Where I was keenly aware that we were not watching a modern movie was exactly what you said. I was sitting there going like, what, San Francisco used to look like this? Like,
Yeah, dude, I didn't see any piss or shit anywhere, dude.
the whole time Jimmy Stewart's walking around like San Francisco, I'm sitting there going, you better check your shoes, dude. Like, you don't let that woman walk around by herself. Like, you're going to get stabbed. But, yeah, no, I thought it looked, I mean, the transfer, the 4K-ness of it, the quality of the film holds up. And I know, like, in doing a little bit of research, in doing the intro to this video, this movie is included in what's called the 5 Lost Hitchcocks. Like I said, we talked a little bit about that. And so apparently there were 5 movies that I think there were rights entanglements. And I don't know who with. I don't know if it was the studio. I don't know if it was Hitchcock. I don't know if it was Hitchcock's family or maybe some of the distributors at the time. But there was 5 movies that basically, since they came out in theaters, they weren't seen again until the 1980s. So this is one of them. And, yeah, I thought it was great. Before we continue, though, I just want to read a brief summary in case you haven't watched this movie. Again, watch this movie. Like, whether you want to pause this, come back and see if you agree with us, or if you want to watch this and then go back. I can't recommend this movie enough. I mean, I guess, and, you know, I went and bought a ton of Hitchcock movies today because I'm like, I want to go down the deep dive. And hopefully we can bring a lot of those to this channel because I think that there's more, you know, and everyone is probably going to be us gushing. But before we go further, I just want to read a really brief summary. And I am reading this, so, you know, whatever. If that bothers you, sorry. Vertigo, directed by Alfred Hitchcock, follows retired San Francisco detective Scotty Ferguson, James Stewart, who suffers from a fear of heights. Hired to investigate the mysterious behavior of Madeline Elster, Kim Novak, the wife of an old acquaintance, Scotty becomes obsessed with her as he follows her through the city. When tragedy strikes, Scotty's life spirals into grief and obsession, only to uncover a shocking truth that blurs the line between love, deception, and manipulation. So I think that's a pretty good summation of this movie. You know, obviously it leaves out, but there's a whole bunch of twists and turns in this. So I do have one critique of one thing I did not love about this movie in terms of the story, but we can get into that later. Right now, let's talk about the kind of the beginning of this movie. From the very opening frame of this movie, one, I didn't expect this movie to be as trippy as it is. It's a trippy movie.
I feel like the things that I've seen about the movie have only showed the trippy scenes, which I like. The movie's pretty long. Did you feel like it?
Yeah.
Like it didn't like when I was watching it, I didn't feel like, okay, is it almost over? Like I was completely into it. But at a certain point, I was like, okay, this is longer than I expected. I'm stupid and I never look at the runtime for movies. So I'll throw on a movie at like 8:30 or 9, and then I have to wake up at 6 in the morning, and I'm like, okay, well, I have to finish this, and it's getting a little late. But tons of twists and turns in this movie. I didn't see the ending coming, which was cool, because I'm glad that the internet didn't spoil it for me. We already touched about how visually the 4K was remastered and it was absolutely gorgeous. The character, this is my first James Stewart movie. Jimmy Stewart, James Stewart. Um, I loved him, dude. I love that he was. What's the old black and white TV show with the nerdy guy and their cops? He did like
Yes. Andy Griffith Show.
Andy. Yeah.
Nerdy guy and their cops. You mean Don Knotts, Barney Fife, the
Yeah,
legend?
yeah, yeah.
Barney Fife.
Don Knotts. The 1950s Donnie Knotts or whatever character type is probably my favorite, dude. And I haven't seen a lot of it.
Bro,
I don't know
you
if
gotta
I
watch.
just offended you, but
You got to watch Andy Griffith Show. No, you didn't offend me. I could tell that you don't know much about Don Knotts, and that's fine.
I don't.
Don Knotts is, yeah, he's one of my all-time favorite character actors. I want to call him a comedian, even though he's not like traditionally a comedian. I understand what you're saying, and it's kind of like the skinny white guy that's a little bit eccentric. Don Knotts did some incredible comedic, legendary things on the Andy Griffith Show, and Andy Griffith Show is kind of seen as this milquetoast, aw shucks, and it is, but the writing on that show is so good, and the characters on that show are incredible, and he's one of them. Yeah, I've seen Jimmy Stewart in a few things, one of which is what we talked about in kind of the part one when we were kind of trying to guess this movie, which is It's a Wonderful Life, which is a classic. We will definitely get to that one. So I'm a little bit aware of Jimmy Stewart, and I knew what to kind of expect because Jimmy Stewart basically plays Jimmy Stewart. But I'll tell you what, man, the turn in this movie and the way Alfred Hitchcock, so essentially going back to your point of, yes, it is a long movie. I mean, it's not, we're not talking Christopher Nolan long. This doesn't push 3 hours. I think it's like 2 hours and 8 minutes. So
yeah, it's not very long.
Yeah, in the realm of modern films, it's not very long. But this is essentially two movies, and the beginning, which also serves as the setup, is a completely different movie than what we end up with at the turn of this film. And the beginning of the movie is like a noir detective, private eye, gumshoe type movie. And it's peppered in with the idea that he's afraid of heights. The whole movie opens with him. He's a retired cop. He goes into retirement because he's basically the causation, he blames himself for the death of his partner when they're chasing somebody on the rooftops of San Francisco, and he falls on the side, and you can see this in the trailer. So up to this point, we're not really spoiling much, but he slips on the roof and starts falling off, and his partner comes to save him, and his partner ends up falling. And then from then he has kind of this fear of heights, and he blames himself, so he retires, and he doesn't want to continue to be a police officer. We find out from his friend, who was her name, Midge, who's also awesome.
She's my new crush, dude.
Played by Barbara Bel Geddes, I believe is how you pronounce it. She's great, dude, and she serves as kind of this backstory to Scotty's life. They were once engaged. She called it off. We don't know why, but there's some lingering feelings, and they have this kind of kinship where he trusts her. I think she loves him. And as the movie progresses, we get to see that play out. But there's this great scene in the beginning where she's talking about him and how he was once this successful lawyer, and then he wanted to become the chief of police, and he's basically giving up all that because of the guilt that he feels for the death of his partner. So that scene was amazing. Jimmy Stewart has this like history of film. He's like a film legend. And I feel like Alfred Hitchcock plays that up so much, almost like something that it kept reminding me of is like the movie Training Day with Denzel Washington. Denzel Washington is such a beloved actor that I feel like Antoine Fuqua in that movie plays your love of Denzel Washington as a human being and as an actor against you throughout that whole movie, and is very effective in that it makes you feel gross because it's like you're watching like a relative or a friend take this like heel turn that you don't want him to, but it's great, and it's a great performance, one of Denzel Washington's best performance. But this is kind of very similar, where it starts and James Stewart is the hero of the story, and he gets hired by an old army friend to basically investigate his wife because he's alleging that this woman who died 100 years ago, 150 years ago, has possessed his wife. He says like he's followed her and she will go places. She'll go to the bay. She'll go to the museum. She'll go to all these locations, and then he'll ask her later, knowing where she's been, where have you been all day? And she won't recall anything that's going on. So it starts as almost like this supernatural, we're going to get into this possession ghost story type thing. And on top of being like this noir film, it also has this supernatural ghost story element to it, suspenseful, Alfred Hitchcocky, creepy. Alfred Hitchcock also does this stuff. We talked about it a little bit at the beginning, where like he's very clever with editing, but he does these camera moves where he'll be on the subject of the scene, and then the camera will just veer off into something else in the apartment. And as the viewer, you're sitting there going like, well, what am I like? We're in the middle of the scene, but he's pointing us to something else that's going on. And so that is like what was awesome. So it starts as almost like this ghost story, and up until that, it was great. It was trippy. That opening scene between Scotty and Midge, he's telling her his outline for how he's going to overcome his fear of heights, and it's by progressively and gradually, like, taking more chances almost and stepping up. And like there's this great scene with the stool where he keeps progressing and going up on the stool, and he hits a certain point and he looks out the window and he sees straight down and he ends up fainting. And then it fades into the next scene with Scotty and his friend, who's like this industrialist rich guy who's inherited all this money from his wife's family. And that's where the story really kind of kicks off. But yeah, I don't know if you have anything about that beginning part, or as you're watching the movie at this point, are you thinking that it's just like a noir, like ghost? Do you buy the possession thread or the ghost story thread that this woman is being inhabited by the ghost of what turns out to be what Scotty understands is a relative of hers? She's the great granddaughter of this woman who married a rich guy when she was young. The guy got older. She had a kid. He took the kid and basically abandoned her into like oblivion and homelessness, and she went crazy, ended up dying by suicide. So up until this point, what are you tracking? Like, is this to you? Do you think it's going to be a ghost story?
Yeah, watching it, and when the ghost story kind of joined the noir movie that you're talking about, I sat back and I was like, oh yeah, this is an Alfred Hitchcock movie. This is going to have like some sort of like sinister creepiness to it, some spiritual stuff. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'm super excited. I think the way that you just explained the first part of the movie was beautiful and well done. I don't think I can beat that. I fully bought into the fact that this was going to be him finding out that what her husband was saying was true. And as we're going to figure out, that may not have been as true as he led the audience to believe.
Yeah, and so along with this, and this is why, like, going back to our love, or at least my love of this movie, is the richness, right? It really highlights a lack of like what modern filmmaking lacks. And part of it is the long runtime. Part of it is like older movies, you sit in these moments. And in these moments, in these sequences, the filmmaker, and also I got to call out the score. The score is like almost unrelenting. And there's
I gotta pay more attention to the score, dude. You catch it and I kind of forget about it.
Well, in this one it's so prominent because there's a bed of just beautiful music that encapsulates what's going on in the scene, and then there's selective moments where there's no music, and that is like something that I definitely paid attention. I pay attention to that because I think a score goes so well or hand in hand with the magic of cinema. And there's certain movies that are good that you're like, that was a good movie, and then there's certain movies that you go back and you're just like, that was a magical movie, and it transports you. The name of the composer is Bernard Herrmann, and so there's just this underlying score throughout this entire movie that really keeps the heartbeat of everything going, along with what Alfred Hitchcock is presenting to you. I noticed that in the sequences where he's following her, like it's in San Francisco. If you've been to San Francisco, then you know that like the construct of the city and the way it's laid out is weird. There's all these hills, there's these alleyways, there's these one ways, there's, parts where it doesn't seem like cars should necessarily fit on the roadway. And it's like a claustrophobic nature. I also noticed there was a butt ton of people, and I was talking to Sarah and I was like, there's just been tons of people all the time. Maybe not as many as there is now. It's not like, but there's always people. and there's all these claustrophobic scenes, but the scenes where he's more elevated and going down and following her, he starts sweating a little bit. And I noticed that what Jimmy Stewart was doing was he was driving and he was looking off. Like he was looking off in the direction that it didn't follow the eye line of kind of where the car should be in the scene. And I was thinking about that afterwards, because I didn't really, was like, that was kind of weird. I don't know if this is like a movie mistake or what, but I think it was heightening the sense of vertigo. And there's obvious scenes in this movie where the vertigo, the camera techniques, the dolly zoom is very apparent that they want you to feel, but there's also just an uneasy feeling going on in the story as this is playing out. And that was something that I noticed along with the score that was just awesome. So as he's following this guy's wife, he begins to fall in love with her. He begins to see patterns, and it culminates in her going to the San Francisco Bay. I believe they said it was the Presidio. I'm not as familiar with San Francisco.
The Presidio, and I love the Presidio. So that was another thing that I was like, oh shit, I really like where this is going.
Well, I also think if you've been to San Francisco and know the kind of vibe of that city, it helps when you're watching this movie.
Yeah. I grew up watching So I Married an Axe Murderer, and there's a scene where they go to the Presidio and they dance and they speak Russian and it's all this stuff. And as a kid, I was like, I need to go here. This place looks sweet. And I've gone a few times, and then seeing it in this movie brought back all those feelings again. So I was like, oh, I love this, dude.
I felt the same way when I watched Ant-Man. But I mean, they're not Russian, maybe, but no, I'm just kidding. But like, I think he uses, like, great filmmakers use the environment and they build the world. And in this case, the world's already built, but he uses the city of San Francisco and all of the redwoods, the bay, the roadways, the kind of construct of the city and the way the city's laid out, the people, all of that stuff plays into all of this. So anyway, it culminates in her going to the Presidio. There's a moment where she falls into the bay, and you're kind of left wondering, because the whole setup is she doesn't know what's going on. These lapses hit her, and she's taken over, and she's possessed, quote unquote, by this woman, the spirit of this long dead woman, and she doesn't remember what happened. So she falls into the bay, and you don't know, is this like a suicide thing, or is this like she's being taken over? Oh, that's the other thing, is like the lady died with the woman that his buddy, who it's his wife, is saying killed herself when she was 26. This is the same age as was it Elsie? I'm terrible with movie names. I've noticed that. I don't. Madeline Elsie. Sorry, Madeline. Yeah. So Madeline is the same age. So he's telling him like she's going to try to kill herself because that's what the spirit did when she was 26, or what the lady
said that's what the spirit did, and then that's what her grandmother did, or something.
Yeah. So there's like a line of
great grandmother, I guess.
So she falls in the bay. Jimmy Stewart jumps in and saves her, brings her back to her apartment, strips her down,
back to his apartment,
takes off all her clothes, and then like lays her in his bed. And then, from a modern like perspective, it's kind of weird.
It's kind of weird. It's the 50s though. And then there's one part after that scene where they're talking, and she's like, I hope I didn't ruin your night. And he's like, this is the best night ever. And I was like, bro, you just undressed this possessed woman and put her in your bed naked.
Right.
Maybe don't say this is your best night ever.
Right. So they're having this whole scene where they're kind of connecting. There's some like romance, some sparks kind of flying, or like there's like an initial attraction between the two of them, which also is kind of weird because she's 26 and he's clearly like 50.
And also
he's like, oh, I took clothes off.
And it's also weird because there's the fact that she's supposedly his like good friend's wife.
Right.
And he's just throwing that friendship away, throwing away her marriage, and is just like, no, but I love you, see?
Yeah, but
that's my best 50s accent.
We're star-crossed lovers. Come on, Clarence.
Yeah, dude. Before we move on, I took notes. When he's following her and like chasing her through the city, and every time she stops, he gets out and follows her. He's like 10 feet away from her, and that was like one note that I put is like he parks like directly behind her and just sits in the car and stares at her. Yeah. Which later we find out that possibly she probably knew he was coming.
Right.
But before I knew the catch of the movie, I was like, okay, I understand this is an older movie, but this is like. He's not even hiding the fact that he's following her everywhere, dude.
Well, and this is like like Brando and like James Dean and that ilk of actor were the ones that kind of broke it away from the stage acting, like, over the top, and it was
Yeah,
more less is
vaudevillian
more
stuff.
method, more like realistic. The camera gets in closer. A lot of that old timey acting is because these people are coming from the stage where they're projecting to the back of the house. Well, when the camera's invented and the camera becomes small enough to where you can get into close shots, you don't need to emote as big. So there is some old 1950s acting. There is some older elements of this movie that remind you that you're watching a movie from 70 years ago now,
Yeah.
or almost 70 years ago. But
Was it originally black and white, and was it colorized, like Technicolor, like
I don't
painted
think
in?
so. I read that the beginning was black and white, and then it went into color. I mean, there was definitely color movies by this point. So
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that but I don't think it was. I think it was presented in color. But anyway, so he takes her back to the apartment. The husband calls and he goes, "Yeah, she's here." And he goes back out and he hangs up the phone and she's gone. She's split. Somehow he brought her car there. I don't know how that worked either. Because he
Yeah.
brought her car, but he seemed to have his car. So she gets in her car, leaves. He goes out, she's gone. He comes back the next day to his apartment because he's following her again. And she goes back to his house and leaves like, "Thank you note for saving my life." They have this interaction on the front porch. So as it progresses, he follows her around. They start connecting, they start falling in love. He becomes kind of obsessed with the idea of figuring out, like, is this something where you're being possessed, or do you remember all this stuff? Is this like trauma that you're working through? And he's trying to figure out. So it's very much a detective story, and an effective detective story, I thought, up until this point. So then it builds to this point of they go to this old Mission Batista, I think it was, or something Batista, this old mission in California, and they go on a day trip because she has images of this green belt where from her younger self or the past self, that she's envisioning these things that didn't happen to her, didn't happen to Madeline, but happened to this woman who killed herself a long time ago. So he takes her back. She's having this moment in this stable where she's talking about these horses. There's no horses around. And I thought that scene was really funny and kind of macabre. But Jimmy Stewart finds because it's like a museum. The church is now a museum in California, which I meant to look up to see if that was still there. I mean, I'm sure it has
because
to
that'd
be
be cool.
That'd be cool to go check it out. But he finds like an old prop horse, like a statue, and he's like, "Oh, this is what you're seeing. Like this is the horse. This is what you're seeing. You're not really possessed."
Yeah, dude.
And in the
He
middle
even says
of this,
like, it doesn't move as much anymore now, but it's still a horse. It's
which is like totally the humor of Alfred Hitchcock. So she runs back to the green belt. They have this moment, and she goes, "I have to go into the church. I have to go in the church by myself, and you have to let me go." And he's like, "But I love you, and I don't want to lose you." And she's like, "Well, you'll never lose me." So she runs into the church. She runs up to the bell tower, and he's chasing her, which again, like, that was another scene where he's like maybe 10 steps behind her.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I guess it makes sense because as he gets up the bell tower, that's when the vertigo comes into play. And he's stopped because the higher he gets, he's looking down. And that's when that famous dolly shot down the bell tower. That's that sequence. And she makes it to the top, jumps to her death, which was hilarious too. The mannequin that was thrown over the side, and
the arms.
But it's still striking. Like, it's a striking sequence because like it's just, it all happened so fast. So she dies. He is like, from there, he's like committed to, he's got severe melancholia, I think is what the doctor of this institution that he's in, and he's despondent. Midge comes to visit him and is playing him classical music, saying like, "Oh, the doctors say that classical music helps, pull people out of this, and it's not working." And so, there's this great moment with Midge and the doctor in the end where she tells him like, "Oh, he was in love with her, and he's still in love with her." So we cut to some time later. I think it's a year. He's out of the institution. He's trying to go back and track his life, or trying to get his life back together, trying to regain. He's still bummed out because Madeline's gone. He was in love with Madeline. She killed herself. And then he sees this woman on the street. And the woman looks an awful lot like Madeline. Here's where we get into the spoilers. And this is the major spoiler of the movie. He sees Madeline, or what he thinks is Madeline. It's a woman who's a brunette. She's not blonde. Madeline's blonde in the story. And goes to her apartment, and there's this scene, where he goes to her apartment and she's like, "No, you need to leave me alone." And he's like, "Let me come in your apartment. I'm not going to hurt you. You can leave the door open." She's like, "No, I'll scream." So she lets him in. they have this moment. You as the audience kind of at this point realize this is the same actress. So this is the same actress. Judy Barton is the name of the girl that he sees on the street and goes to her apartment. But it's Kim Novak, the same actress that played Madeline Elster, his Gavin Elster, his friend's wife. And so there's this moment where he's trying to connect, and she's like, well, I'm not her. You're trying. She figures out that he's lost somebody and that he's trying to regain what he had with her. And she's telling him, I'm not her. And before he leaves, he said, let me take you out to dinner. And she's like, why? Because you think I'm her? And he goes, no, because I want to. And so he leaves and she sits down to get ready. He goes, I'll be back in an hour to pick you up for dinner. She sits down and she starts writing a letter. This is the part of the movie that's the major twist and the part that I did not love about this movie.
Really?
Yeah. And
I didn't catch that she was the same girl in the beginning. So Hitchcock,
she looks different.
She looks different, dude. Hitchcock got me, dude. But at that scene where she starts to write the letter and then she's kind of deciding for herself that she's going to run off because it's going to spoil the whole setup that she has. And I thought it was really effective and really good. And I'm sitting there going like, oh, man, this is not what I expected. And I would like to hear why you didn't like it.
It was definitely not expected. So the twist is this Judy is actually Madeline Elster. She looks different, but she was hired by Gavin
Elster.
It's not
actually Madeline.
She wasn't Madeline.
Yeah.
She wasn't Madeline, who was the real wife to Gavin, his friend that from his army buddy that he hired to investigate. The whole story about her being possessed was BS. He was using it. He killed his wife, broke her neck, and then used Judy to play the role of his wife to have Scotty fall in love with her, and used his vertigo against him, knowing that he would not be able to chase her up the bell tower and would not be able to stop her from killing herself. And then
was his intention for them to fall in love? Sorry, I cut you off.
Yeah, he was basically using her to make him fall in love and chase, but knew that he would never be able to get up the bell tower because it was too high and his vertigo would not allow him to. So she runs to the top. Gavin is there with his dead wife waiting. It's a twisted movie, don't get me wrong.
It's absolutely, dude.
It's twisted. So at this point, Jimmy Stewart is absolutely obsessed, not only with the situation and figuring out what's going on with Madeline, but Madeline himself, and is like in love with her. Watches her fall to her death, but at the top, Gavin is waiting with his dead wife, throws his dead wife. His real dead wife is the one that's thrown out of the bell tower, and him and Judy, playing Madeline, hide behind the door until they have an opportunity to escape. Nobody being the wiser, everybody thinking it was Gavin Elster's real wife who jumped out. Boom, she killed herself. He scot free. He was with Judy, paid her a bunch of money to do this, and then, like the old woman that was abandoned by the rich guy, was then left, and he didn't want anything to do with her. So this is the point where we find, and this is where, so I didn't love the twist. Like, it was pure exposition. I'm going to write this letter. I'm going to tell the audience this is what happened, that all this thing has been a farce, which is shocking to see, right? And it was shocking how much I didn't know about this movie.
Yeah, me too.
And how, like, some of the other movies we've watched, I've had a general knowledge through pop culture. I didn't know anything about this movie other than Jimmy Stewart was in it and they had a special effects show at Universal Studios Hollywood. But I did not know the details. So it is shocking. I didn't love how it was presented. It was very like, and far be it from me to criticize the great Alfred Hitchcock. And I'm sure at the time it was groundbreaking and nobody ever did it. But I just thought her writing the letter and the voiceover and then them showing you, I didn't love that. I didn't love that.
It's very spelled out. Like, oh, this is actually what happened. Here's all of the truth. But instead of having like the audience be smart enough to figure it out, we're going to spell it out for you.
Well, and also this is where the time period plays in, because if that was a modern movie, it would have played out differently. I just didn't love the exposition and the presentation of that. Now, there's a couple things that got me back, because at this point, I'm looking at my wife going, what? Are you serious? Couple things that got me back. The rest of the movie, and this goes back to what I was saying before. They used your love or your like and your up until this point, you've become you've started to like Jimmy Stewart's character. He's now this unhinged madman that spends the rest of the movie trying to change Judy into Madeline. He makes her dress the same way. He gets real handsy with her, like grabs her and just directs her where to go, starts like controlling her. He starts makes her go to get the same haircut. She comes home, the hairstyle is a little bit different. He makes her go in the bathroom and sits there and waits till she puts her hair up the right way. And there's this really sad moment where Judy's like, because Judy, come to find out, actually fell in love with him too. As she was playing the role of Madeline Elster, fell in love with Jimmy Stewart.
Yeah.
Proof that love comes in all shapes and sizes.
So she kind of like
age.
And she kind of, you can tell that she feels bad. But then also she did something terrible to this guy, tricked him. And then I love the fact that he gets like so possessive and like is attempting to change her into the girl that he misses.
Yeah.
That it's like almost her her consequence for the terrible thing that she did to him is now that he is doing this to her, which I loved that, dude.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's one element that got me back. I mean, that's one thing that my wife pointed out. My wife also, let's get to the end of this movie because we're almost there, and then I'll tell you what got me back. So he goes all this time, basically turns her into Madeline, which is just twisted, and these scenes are frantic, and like there's these moments of him just like losing it. And at the end, they're getting ready to go out to dinner or somewhere, and she puts on a necklace that's the same necklace that Madeline wore. And so he gets in the car and he's just like frantic and he's unhinged and he's obsessive, right? And he's driving her. He goes, we're going to go somewhere. We're going to go somewhere else, Clarence. And
when he sees the necklace, he knows.
He knows. And I didn't pick up on that until the very end. So he figures out through the necklace, he puts it all together, which, to my point, if you would have done that, if you wouldn't have had the scene of her writing the letter and you would have just revealed and then done a quick callback to Madeline in the thing, it would have been so much more effective. And that reveal would have been even that much more incredible. And it would have been. And it would have, because what I didn't like is I didn't love the ghost story element being completely pushed out the window, pun intended.
Hey.
So I didn't love that. And so it's revealed, like he figures out what's happened and he puts it together. He takes her back to the Mission Batista, takes her up to the bell tower. He's going to push her off. And he tells her, like, I know what you did. I know, like, I figured it all out. You almost had me, but the necklace, you weren't good enough. You didn't hide the necklace. The necklace revealed everything. And then he starts unraveling and basically telling you again what you already saw in this exposition scene of her writing the letter, that it was all planned, that he used her, that Gavin Elster used her, discarded her, and then at the end she was just this wasted thing. At the height of the scene, all of a sudden this nun comes out of nowhere who looks like the nun from freaking Conjuring and is terrifying.
It's just her shadow, isn't it?
Just her shadow, and she floats out of the darkness, scares Judy, and Judy falls out and suffers the same fate as Madeline Elster, dying to her death. And then that's it. That's the end of the movie. They go to credits.
Title. Yeah.
So all that is
credits.
All that is fine. Here's the thing that got me back. The one thing that you pointed out of him finding out through the necklace, I thought that was great. I wish that he would have left it as it was. And I'm sorry, dude. I have a lot of thoughts on this, so I'm sorry.
No, you're good, dude.
I'm trying to recap everything and go.
I'm reliving the movie as you're going, being like, yeah.
So great. I'm trying to connect it more and not just be scatterbrained about it, because I really loved this movie. And the fact that it made me think, and the fact that it made me sit there and ponder on this. I watched it 2 days ago and I'm still like just going like, what? So all of this happened. The thing that got me back is my wife told me she had this, she goes, the thing that's interesting, because I was like, oh, the ghost story, they threw it out the window. She's like, not really. Like, from a certain perspective, you could say that ghost possessed him and made him do all of the things that he was suspecting was happening to Madeline and driving him into this rage. And he should have been the one that jumped out of the bell tower, but because she was scared, she fell to her death. and it snapped him out of it. It's almost one of those movies where I wish that there would have been at least like 10 more minutes to explain what happened.
Especially because there's a part where he's talking to Midge, I think when he's in the hospital. Or no, whenever he's back at her house and they're doing the steps to see if he's okay, which that was like super comedic, and like their playfulness was so good. I really like to harp back on Midge. I fell in love with Midge for like the brief 10 minutes she was on screen. I don't know what it was.
Can I piggyback that real quick?
Hold on, wait.
Okay, finish your thought, and then I want to piggyback this.
There's a part where she says like, also there might be a way of like me facing my fear or something drastic happening that can snap you out of it. So all of this happening at the very end could possibly be like, I can't imagine it's going to end well for him, 2 women falling to their death while he's up there. But that could have potentially been the onset, or I guess it wouldn't be the onset. It would be whatever to break him out of the vertigo, which I thought was like super interesting at the end. And I was like, I wonder if he still has it.
I mean, he did because he made it up the bell tower, and he even has a moment where he goes, "Oh, I did it. I overcame it." You know what? Why that scene was so great? 2 things. Why that scene was so great at the beginning with the stepladder and him saying like, "I think I can gradually work because that's what he did with Madeline. He tried to use he incrementally tried to take her back to the locations and have her experience the things and walk back the memories that she was having as this supposed possessed, haunted spirit from this lady that had died. So I thought that was beautiful foreshadowing and like just set the groundwork for the whole story. And that's like ultimately how I feel. I have one more thing. And again, far be it from me to rewrite an Alfred Hitchcock movie, but I have one more thought on the whole twist. And I just wanted, before I go there, that's what I thought. Let's give our rewatchability
5.
I'll watch this movie every couple of years, and I'll try to, now knowing what the twist is, I bet it changes how you watch the movie from the beginning as well.
Especially those scenes where you're talking about how they're like in the scene and the camera kind of veers off to show something else. Yeah. I wonder how many of those are like details that we weren't aware of.
Right.
And after watching it the first time, you'll be able to pick them up.
So rewatchability on this, I can't stress enough. Like if you're a film fan, if you're a Hitchcock fan, if you're like this, this, like you can see where this goes, like how this springboards into later things like Psycho. Psycho's still my favorite Alfred Hitchcock movie because just everything about that movie is like incredible to me. And this movie was pretty close up there, but you can definitely see the connection between that movie and this movie, right? And I saw a thing where Alfred Hitchcock said like this movie is basically about a guy that wanted to bone a dead woman. Like that's from his words is what he said, which is like shows you the mind of Alfred Hitchcock.
Oh yeah.
Twisted. All right. So rewatchability, both agree 5 out of 5.
5 out of 5.
Dude, why? Here's my epilogue to all this thing, and then we'll wrap this episode up because I'm sure it's been long. But
there's one scene that I forgot to touch on, but we'll do it after what you have to say.
No, go do it first because I this is just kind of a wrap up. Me thinking about this as in the postpartum of this movie.
Okay. I think we texted. We try not to text each other like our direct thoughts of the movie, but I think we've been like kind of playfully knowing that we're both watching it close to the same time and just being like, "Hey, did you catch that guy?" The bookshop guy was an animal talking about how he misses the 1800s where you could kind of own a woman, and I think both of us texted each other like, "Ooh, this guy's kind of creepy." That scene where he's telling the history of this ghost story. I don't know if it's intentional or it's another time that I'm like really looking into the scene.
The lighting.
But the lighting, dude. You caught that too? I said that to Paige and I was like, I don't know if it's real. But the darker that the story got, the darker the lighting got in the bookstore. And then they wrapped it up by being like the sun's going down because they leave the bookstore and it's dark in there and then his light turns on. And I just thought like, that was incredible, dude. And it's such a small detail that like there's no dialogue that addresses it at all. It's just you're so focused into the story that you catch it. And I loved it, dude. I thought it was so cool and added like a real like feel to the scene that I was just completely involved in everything that I was watching.
Yeah, it was genius.
I'm glad you caught that, dude.
I noticed it right away, dude, because I said the same thing. I was like, what's trying to be what's being conveyed here? but I think part of it was a transition. It was transition from evening into like dusk. I think it also, to your point, paralleled the story that was being told. Like, I think this story really is about, like, at its heart, it's about possessive men, right?
Yeah.
And it's probably playing into something about Hitchcock that if we really knew the truth of his psychology, we probably wouldn't like very much. But I think like it was, sundown on the story. Like it's
Yeah.
like, and it's almost like once he knew that information, because that's what kind of sparks his detective. That's what sets him on the path of a detective, him having the whole story of, and the whole backstory of what this person from the past. But yeah, that guy's performance was so like, one, it's also weird to see people smoking indoors. I don't
Yeah.
know if you run into that. And like, I grew up, for a
Oh yeah.
significant portion of my young life, like you'd go into restaurants and people would light up, and you'd go into houses and people would light up, and
My
you never thought
grandparents,
twice.
yeah, my grandparents smoked in their apartment. They lived there for like 40 years. And whenever they moved, we took down picture frames and you could see the tar lines
Woo.
from where the pictures were. And like you had to like peel them off the walls. So I
God,
smelled that scene, dude.
God bless him. Yeah, you could smell that scene, and
Old
like the
Vegas, dude.
And I also like noticed the meticulous, like the way that bookstore was set up and the way that it was shot. But yeah, I noticed that too. I thought that was a genius thing. And that's kind of the richest, because this is all happening in camera, right? And it's like nowadays you'd probably change the lighting in post, or you would, I don't know. And I don't know exactly what
It
the
wouldn't be as
significance of it
subtle as
was.
that was.
It was so subtle. And I don't know. I don't know what I don't really know what the significance was, but I know that there was significance there. And that's the cool part. And that's why I love movies, dude, because
Me too, man.
and that's kind of like, that plays into why I didn't love that scene where she's writing in the letter and then she crumbles it up, and then it's just a device to tell the audience like what the twist is. So here's my epilogue to all of this, unless you have something else, but if not,
I think that's it, dude. My final note is that I have a hard on for Midge.
yeah, I know. And the next part, bro, and I'm not rewriting the story, whatever.
You can cut that part out, though.
No, I'm leaving that in. Hard on for Midge. The name of this episode is going to be called Hard On for Midge.
Dude, sold.
I so wanted, instead of the whole thing of him, and granted what you said plays, and there's ramifications to what you were saying about her curse being that she had to live through this and be made to be Madeline in the end, and like his obsessive nature and him becoming that monster. I wish it would have been such a darker movie if he would have done that to Midge, because that's where I thought it was going, because they set up the idea that she's still in love with him. So there's that great line from Judy where she goes, "If I look like this, if I do this, will you love me?" And he goes, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, I will." And then
That's what
ends
I've been
up like
saying this whole time.
won't kiss her, won't touch her until she's fully made to look like Madeline. I just feel like that was the perfect setup for Midge. And that would have been, taking somebody like Midge. Midge is this independent woman in the beginning. She's a designer. She's got her own thing going on. There's implications that she broke off the engagement, but you could tell that there was a hint of regret. I just thought that would have played so much better if you took out the element of like, oh, this was all by design. Like, what if she really just jumped out the window and like you made it this ethereal, kind of nebulous ghost story, and then in part of that, in kicking off his obsessive, because it's like Hereditary, when the daughter dies, she tries to fill that part of her that's mourning with like the medium, and it opens up that portal and all those demons come in. That's kind of like the same thing. He's trying to create that hole. He's trying to plug that hole with like the memory of her and what he thinks that she should be. And I just thought, like, man, this would have played so much better if he did that to Midge. It would have been so much more impactful. Reverse it, takes her to the bell tower. He's the one that falls out of the bell tower in the end. I just feel like, man, that would have been such a like cooler story. I'm glad we got the movie that we got. Again, far be it from me to change or edit, God, rest in peace, Alfred Hitchcock. You made a great movie. You made a great series. You had a run that was like, I don't know if anybody else has done. But yeah, I loved it. I can't wait to watch it again. I can't wait to watch it again with the context of like knowing where the story's going, and maybe I'll watch it again and go, no, you're wrong. That's stupid.
Yeah, and I feel like this is a movie that I don't think a lot of people I know have seen. Older people I know have seen it, but this would be a fun one to show someone that has the attention span to watch it, I think.
Hitchcock party, Hitchcock
Yeah,
party. Dude, I'm going down the Hitchcock run. Hey, thank you guys so much. I think that'll do it. Vince, unless you have anything else.
That's it, dude. Hard on for Midge.
Hard on for Midge. Thank you for watching this with me. I'm so glad we're doing this, and I'm glad we're watching these movies and discovering movies 70 years later and acting like they're brand new and we're the only ones who have seen it. But thank you so much for everybody that's been subscribing. Thank you for anybody that's interacted. Please continue to subscribe. Stick around. Give us movie suggestions. We want to know what your confession is. There a movie that you have always wanted to see and you've been telling people for years that you're a movie fan, but there's just that blind spot? Let us know. It's us too, and we want to interact with you guys. We want to watch the movies with you guys that you want to watch, so let us know. Like, subscribe, and come back. And with that said, thank you so much. We love you. Stay out of the bell tower.
Confessions of a Film Poser.